guys, we're Brian and Liz Fullerton, and we wanted to share with you guys for just a little bit about our process that we went through with the Miller Building Company, and share hopefully our story about building our custom home over here in the Brighton, Michigan area. This is my beautiful wife, Elizabeth. It's been a couple of years since we've started this whole process, and we're finally there. We finally wrapped it up. We've been in the home for about 90 days now. What's your thoughts and feelings about this whole process so far?
It's been a really fun process. A lot of it, I felt like I was on like HGTV or something. Like you literally pick everything from the ground up, and it can be exactly what you want it to be, which is always fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, what we wanted to do is share a little bit about the process that we were able to go through, and let's take it from the top. We're going to be talking about finding our dream piece of property. And we actually were able to secure that about 4 or 5 years ago. When we were about to start the building process, we started scrambling, trying to find a builder. This was all entirely new for us. Do you want to talk to him for just a couple of minutes about how that whole process went?
Yeah, so we had it in mind for many years that we wanted to build a custom home. We had toured so many different like existing communities, like the house,
the model homes.
The model homes and things like that. So we had a really good idea of what we liked and what we didn't, and knew what exactly we wanted wasn't already out there for us. So starting with that in mind, we started looking at property about 5 years ago, and really narrowed it down to the Brighton area. We love living in this area and raising a family. It's an up and coming area, definitely young families moving in, which is something we were looking for. And in that process of looking for land, we also started looking into other builders, and met with a couple, didn't really find anybody we super vibed with, and then it occurred to us that there was a Mike Miller sign actually on our property with the real estate agent he had partnered with.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I remember us going through some of the other builders and even having a sit-down meeting or two, and really realizing that they were trying to put us square peg into a round hole, maybe trying to make some of their previously drawn or designed homes and just add a room or a nook, off of it for what we were hoping for. And it just wasn't really the dream home that we were trying to design from scratch. We found a couple other builders, and maybe they just didn't get the aesthetic or the emotion or the feeling that we were trying to put into this home. And so we felt like we found some good builders, but I don't think we really found a great builder. And Liz had just alluded to one day through sheer brilliance, we were driving off of our property, and I said, well, let's call that sign Mike Miller Building Company. And so that whole process was actually pretty unique. I remember us being at our old apartment, and I called up that phone number on the sign, and lo and behold, Mike Miller himself was able to pick up the phone. And if you guys know Michigan, he was actually up north vacationing and took a phone call.
Took our phone call.
Which we were really, really grateful for. And that changed everything. That was a huge fork in the road for us. Mike spent about 20 or 30 minutes on the phone, just asking questions, trying to learn a bit more about our needs, who we were, what we were looking for, and what we were looking to do over the next couple of years. And I'm really, really grateful for that phone call.
Yeah, one thing he was able to do in the phone call, knowing that we were even talking to other builders and had a sit-down meeting with 1 or 2 of them, he really took the time with us to go over our property. He knew of the property. Obviously, his sign was here. He'd walked it many times and was able to point out a couple of things that we should keep in mind. Even not knowing that, we ultimately would go with him, he really took his time to make sure that we felt comfortable buying the property, just as like an outside perspective, which we appreciated. We didn't really have anybody else to lean on for that kind of information. So that was kind of what sold us on him, was his authenticity and his genuine want to help us.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say too is he invited us to Panera. Don't know if it was a couple days or a couple weeks later, but I remember sitting down at a Panera Bread locally to us, and quite honestly, it was just a really fun, casual conversation about us sharing about all of our wants and needs in a future home that we wanted to build. I remember sitting down, and it was a good 2 or 3 hour powwow. I don't know if that's his regular cadence for his meetings, but
we usually have a lot of words. So.
We had a lot of questions, as you guys can imagine, because this is a pretty big project and a pretty big undertaking, and we wanted it to be right. We were pretty patient. We were saving our money. We wanted to really find the builder that understood us. And I do remember sharing ideas with Mike, sharing inspirational photos and videos, and it was a really, really good, just casual conversation. And for me personally, and I'll let you weigh in, but for me personally, I remember the whole conversation at the end, Mike saying, well, I think you're really going to enjoy building a home with Miller Building Company. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, of the 7 or so homes that we had shown him for inspiration, Miller Building Company had built 5 of them. So it was literally like we found the right guy.
It couldn't have been like more like if you set it up that way, how it happened. And that was really important to us too. We wanted to find somebody who is in our community, who's building homes here, not there's national companies, but we wanted somebody like boots on the ground who understood our environment and the types of homes that were here. We didn't want to build something that looked out of place, but we also wanted it to fit our dream. So we spent a lot of time going through areas like Northville and Brighton, where we live, and taking pictures of homes. And to find out that he was behind the majority of them just kind of sealed the deal for us.
Yeah, we did not know, to be completely honest with you, how big of a deal a Miller Building Company was in the greater Northville and Oakland County area. They are, from what we've determined, like the go-to luxury home builder. But to be completely honest with you, for us, it was just a sign on the front of our property and a little bit of we just got lucky, making that phone call. So that was really, really cool. I do remember us, having a good handshake and a fist bump and said, yeah, I think this is going to work out. It did take some time for the next little bit of the middle process for us to really design the home, understand a little bit more about what we were getting ourselves into, the Miller process. So we'd like to just spend a quick minute and share that with you guys here. One of the very first things that I remember Mike asking us was, do we have an architect yet for the home? Mm-hmm. And we did not. We had just bought the land. We had just obviously found what we believed to be our builder. And all we had was a lot of saved photos.
A lot of saved photos.
We had actually a home folder. If you remember our home folder.
It was like a portfolio or a
bifold portfolio.
Yeah, so each room had its own section.
Yep, we were old school. We took magazine cutouts of every room, every nook and cranny of the home that we wanted, and we put it into this folder. And like Liz said, it was categorized into different rooms and all that fun stuff.
We had a lot of time to dream while saving up for the home.
Yes, and we also had a lot of inspirational photos saved on social media and whatnot for ideas and designs that we wanted to incorporate. Some good, some lofty, some more practical, and we'll get into that here in a quick minute. But what we were able to do is tap into Mike's network, and he linked us up with a really good architect locally, which was TK Design out of South Lyon, Michigan. And let me tell you what, that organization and that group of folks, first class, world class with what they do. One of the best investments we made was into a good architecture firm, good architecture plans, and that whole process took about a year for us. Now, you can do it a lot faster for sure, but this was all new to us, and we're very grateful that they held our hand through that whole process.
So we had a baby in between there too, so a lot of life happening, so they really held our hand the whole way. And it was I remember sitting down for the first time with Mike Latimer at the table, and he brought out some paper and just started sketching as we were talking about what it felt like to walk through our dream home. And it was so cool to see immediately that he caught our vision. Throughout this process, we've kind of learned, like, if we sit down with somebody and they don't immediately start getting what we're trying to explain, then they're probably not who we need to be working with. And the fact that he was able to put pen to paper right away, I could see what I was talking about now coming down on the table, was amazing. And the fact that they have such a good working relationship with Mike Miller. There are builders out there who will do everything for you, your architecture plans, and alter them and then build the home. But we wanted people who were like specialists in what they do, and TK and Mike Miller Building Company are those. And them partnered together for us was like the perfect all-star team, if you will. So
yeah, and one thing that I really enjoyed personally was going through this whole process as a couple. And we're about a year into this whole conversation, and having TK really go take us through their process from, like Liz said, the initial, I call it chicken scratch, on the yellow graphing paper, and totally correct. Like Mike Latimer, one of their main architects and main guys, was able to, on that very first sketch, get us about 90% of the way there on the home that we were looking to build, not only on the exterior, but on the interior. It was phenomenal. And when he turned the yellow paper around and slid it across the desk at us, I looked at you, and I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it. I said, that's our dream home. Yeah. And now we still had a lot of work to do to take care of the interior and what we wanted it for our lifestyle. And for our growing family. So that whole process did take a little bit more time, as you can imagine. But I also got to meet Todd and Katie of TK, and they actually gave us a tour, through the whole office, and just beautiful folks and just world class at what they do. And I will tell you, there's two oars in the water here. One is the Miller Building Company, but two is TK Design, and I don't think we could have done this whole process without either of them, to be honest. So very, very grateful for TK. We could talk about them for another 10, 20, 30 minutes for sure. I do remember, though, going through this whole process and them value engineering, the plan for our budget and for our lifestyle, and really taking time also with Mike Miller, kind of being the quarterback of this whole project, and really helping us to make the best investments that we could for the home, really put money into the materials and the building process to have the best bang for the buck with our project. And that was conversations about the exterior walls, the framing, utilizing every inch of the home, different things with natural light and how that would affect the home and the mood. And of course, just catching our vision for what we wanted the home to look like and feel like. And again, like Liz had said, they really caught the vision from day one. And that's something that I think was just missing from a lot of the other builders that we were trying to court.
Something I really appreciated about TK's process too is that they have a almost virtual reality set up where you can walk through your home almost like you're on The Sims or something like that. So it's one thing to see things drawn out on paper, but if you are like me and you really need to put yourself in the home, that can be difficult, and it's kind of scary for a lot of people, right? Because you're making these huge financial investments and decisions for the home. So to be able to actually go through and walk through your home was really cool, and a really unique process to them in our area that I appreciated. Another thing too is they never made us feel guilty if we needed to go back and change something, or hey, I'm kind of questioning this, can we revisit this area? They always took time with us, and they had Mike in on multiple different meetings to make sure that things made sense from his perspective too, which again, I really appreciated. So.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines from one of the carpenters was, architects design things, builders build things, and carpenters actually make them a reality. And so it was a fun process to see things, like Liz said, go from paper to actual design, and then also make sure that it fit the budget that we were looking to invest in with Mike Miller and his team. So that was a very, very fun process. And again, long story short, we couldn't be more grateful and thankful for the TK family. Beautiful people, check them out, and very, very grateful for that whole process. From there, now that we had a finished set of architecture plans, now we were able to actually get this show on the road.
Or so we thought.
Or so we thought. Well, as you guys know, during this whole process, or can imagine, the world experienced something a little unique and never really seen before, and it was called the COVID pandemic. And that threw a wrench into this whole operation that, frankly, I don't think anybody had the foresight to imagine was going to be coming down the pike. At the time, we were set on a budget. We were looking at all systems go, and the world just got really crazy and really shaky. And quite honestly, this is a big investment for us, so we didn't know if this was the right time to build. And I remember, admittedly, pulling the e-brake on the whole process as material costs started going through the roof. Interest rates were up and down. It was absolutely wild. Uncertainty just in the market and the economy. We had a brand new baby, a lot of changes, and life was coming at you fast during this time. And so one thing I will truly just forever be grateful and thankful for with Miller is his ability to be a human being and understand where we were through this whole process. We weren't just another build on his whiteboard or on the schedule. I knew that we were on the schedule to look to have our home start in the spring of that season. But frankly, I was just a little concerned, and we both just said, hey, we need a little bit more time. And that was actually probably the hardest phone call that I've ever made through this whole process. But it was one of the easiest phone calls, if you will, for Mike Miller that made me just very, very appreciate who he was in the whole process and the whole Miller team. He said, Brian, we're all experiencing unprecedented events with material costs, labor, interest rates, uncertainty. I totally understand. I'm a family man. I get it. Absolutely no big deal. and the breath that I was able to take and the weight that came off of my shoulders, because we were pretty committed to this whole build process and start date.
We felt like we were letting the whole team down because we had things on schedule, and to have that phone call with Mike, like you said, it wasn't a phone call that we wanted to make, but he was nothing but a pressure relief valve for us, which is exactly what we needed at the time. And then he also let us know that no matter what happens, we'll figure this out together. He was always on our team, and just there to be a sounding board and a source of like encouragement when we needed it. It was, nobody in the world expected that to happen, and to have somebody like Mike in our corner that we knew no matter what's happening, we're still gonna get a house built. He'll let us know when he feels it might be a good time for us to jump in. We've never owned a home before. We were renters up until we built this home. And I had to have him to rely on through not just the home building process, but one of the craziest experiences we've gone through as like a country and probably the world in a while, was really, really powerful for us.
Yeah, we definitely looked to Mike as our guide during this whole process because like Liz alluded to, material costs were through the roof, and then they would come back down. Interest rates were down, and then they were starting to creep up. And it was really awesome having Mike quarterback this whole process with us. Not just the X's and O's of the build of the home, but just the macro of our life. And it was really, really cool to have somebody like that in your corner. So obviously we came to the conclusion that we were ready to build, ready to start the whole process. And for me personally, I was super excited about giving this gal the opportunity to build her dream home. Now, long story short, things like budget were part of the conversation. Not really, just kidding. But what we really wanted to do was build a home that was more than just a house. It was home for us. We had rented for almost 10, 11 years at the time, saving every penny we could to put into the investment to this home and a down payment. And really, we have spent years, like Liz had said, going to open houses, model homes, vacationing, and taking photos of homes that we enjoyed or little nuances or things that we saw online or on social media. And we were finally able to have the opportunity to build your dream home. So we could spend a couple of hours on this whole process. We've documented it for the most part the last 12 or 18 months here on YouTube. But what was the overarching idea or theme or feeling that you were trying to express in this home?
We definitely wanted somewhere that we could host people. Hosting has always been important to us, even when we were living in our tiny little apartment. We always had friends over, families, and then we knew we wanted to have a big family one day as well. So we call this house our true north. This is a place that we want people to always feel comfortable coming to if they need a roof over their heads or a meal in their belly. We want our friends and family to know that our door is always open, and we wanted some place that felt comfortable. We wanted quality because we know that kids kind of
they can be rambunctious.
Yeah, but we wanted a space for guests as well, and really combining those two into like a cohesive space was important to us.
We didn't want the biggest home necessarily. We just wanted a nice, comfortable home.
Yeah.
And that's really what the selections and the finishes that we've tried to document on our social media and our YouTube channel the last 18 months. You can really see the beautiful aspects of the home with those upgrades and investments. And so Miller totally understood that. Again, he's built much bigger homes in his portfolio, but this was a nice, comfortable sized home for where we're at and also for where we could grow into. And of course, to go back to the top, like you said, the hosting theme and idea, we love having people over. I'm a big people-pleasing personality type. Anytime we can have people over, friends over, let them spend the night or something like that, we're all for it. So can you talk to me a little bit about what was some inspiration for you for the home, both exterior and interior?
So I love historical homes, old homes. If I had it my way, we probably would be like an arts and crafts Victorian, which would be Brian's nightmare. So it was really important to me while we're building a new home, I didn't want it to feel new. I didn't want it to feel like a box. So we took our time and maybe saved a little bit on square footage so that we had budget room to work in a lot of details, a lot of millwork, so that the home felt established. I didn't want this giant, new built box.
Yeah, oftentimes they feel very heartless and soulless for some of the...
I wanted a lot of character. I wanted it to feel like we had lived here for a while. And so with that in mind, we started looking at home styles, and we were really attracted to craftsman and like Eastern Seaboard style homes. So things that you would find in like Charlevoix, Bay Harbor, Petoskey. And then we brought in some fresher elements, but for the most part, everything is pretty traditional here.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the interior, there's a lot of whites, there's a lot of trim, some beautiful stonework. The countertops and whatnot. Would you say it's like a French country interior? What was your theme or inspiration from there?
So we started with the Craftsman Eastern Seaboard and then kind of added in some French country elements. So it's, I guess, kind of a Frankenstein, but it is very us. And it feels, even when, before we had any furniture in here, we still don't have a ton of furniture in here because they're just getting moved in, but it does feel like us. You could walk through the house, you know, with things covered up and see, you know, the trim and all the little details that we put effort and time into really come through. And so the house on its own stands alone, I feel, and our decor will just kind of add to that, which was important to me.
Amen to that, amen. Well, let's talk about the actual starting of the process. So dig day. We're just going to fast forward to dig day. It was one of the most surreal moments of my adult life. I'm sure yours as well.
Yeah.
We had our daughter there as well. Actually, our son was there, but he was a week away from being born. So there's a lot of moving parts. So we got to start meeting some of the Miller team through this whole process too. And so we'll go into that for just a couple of minutes. But dig day was a very exciting day for us. We actually got one of those commemorative shovels. We're kind of hams and nerds like that.
We are very sentimental people.
So we got this chromed out, you know, shovel. It was really cool. We did the ceremonial shovel of the first scoop of dirt.
I mean, our daughter could barely speak, and she could say dig day because we'd been looking forward to it for so long. I just remember her saying dig day, dig day, dig day all the time. And we would drive, you know, down the road and she would see like an excavator and it was dig day.
Yep, it was awesome. It was really great. The first contractors that we got to meet on site was the excavation team and then the foundation, the footer, you know, guys, and they were all phenomenal people. And one thing that we didn't really realize when we got Mike is that we got access to all of Mike's people. And I think that's something that's really huge to understand when you're trying to select a builder. And I did not have any perspective on that. From the masons, the carpenters, the electricians, the HVAC, foundation guys, roofers, trim carpenters, stone guys. I mean, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of people have probably worked on this home over the last couple of years. And not only was the Miller team stellar, but so were all of the contractors. And we've all heard of like the horror stories, or we've seen on social media, maybe some of the national builders just maybe not turning out the best product, you know, especially since COVID, with maybe a labor shortage or a skill gap shortage. When we say we had a phenomenal team of people working on this home, I literally would struggle to find somebody that was not on the pay grade or the caliber of the Miller name and the Miller banner. I really do mean that.
We've all heard it's who you know, not what you know. And with Mike being so established in the area, he's worked with a lot of his contractors for as long as I've been alive.
It's true.
I think.
That's true.
So like people will say, oh, well, you can, you know, self-contract or whatever your home. And like, yeah, we could probably figure that out, but I don't know the people. Like, and people
we didn't have the time either.
If I could give you any one thing, like the people are important. Like it is, every time we walked on site, even to meet a new contractor, you know, Mike or Andy would be there and they'd be talking to like Scott with like our electrician. And you could tell the camaraderie was there, that they had a good connection. They could, you know, hassle each other about like, hey, let's keep this on time, and nobody's getting offended. And they just brought us like right into the fold. We never felt like outsiders. Like they really did a good job of making us understand that like this is our home first, and that I remember like Andy saying it to me one day. He's like, well, this is your home. Like we're guests here. So like, and that was important too. So although they had so much authority, obviously, with telling us like, good ideas, bad ideas, everybody else still made us feel very comfortable that this was our project too. And we were just kind of like one of the bunch.
Yeah, and we were still in control, which was really exciting. Yeah. We never felt like a nuisance or we were bugging anybody. Admittedly, we probably stopped by a little bit more than your...
But we always brought food.
Yes, please make sure you budget food for the contractors. You got to take care of these guys. That was the line item that did not appear on the Miller master pricing sheet, but we made sure to put a line item in for those guys. But I do want to just emphasize that the whole team was caught up in the vision. You know, it wasn't just another set of plans. I never felt like a number or just a project. We actually got to meet all these different individuals that honestly it became family over the last couple of years.
One of, people ask about the process and what was the hardest part, and like, it sounds so corny to say, but honestly, knowing that like we don't have a reason to see the team anymore feels so weird. When we first moved in, like the first couple weeks, it felt weird to be in the home without like our friends. Every time we were in the home, we were seeing somebody from the team. And luckily, a lot of them live in the area, so we get to bug them still too.
And hopefully see them at the annual Christmas party. I was talking to Mike just the other day, and he said most people would rather see their builder at their funeral than at the Christmas party. And I said, well, I hope to see you at both. So for us, it's been a great process. Not without its own challenges. We'll get into that in a minute. Because building is a tough process, and it can take its toll on you for sure. But we'll cover that here in a quick second. Beyond dig day, the rest of the build started moving pretty quick. We were budgeted about 13 or 14 months, ended up taking us about 17 or 18 months in total. Some of the delays were material, some of the delays were contractors, some of the delays admittedly were us. I mean, it's a team effort, and we're actually pretty flexible on our timeline. I know not everybody has that same luxury, but for us, we ended up having the ability that we were, hey, no big deal kind of people. So that actually took the pressure off of not only us, but also probably the milling team and the contractors. Fast forwarding from dig day, which I'll always remember, and not only because it was a beautiful day, but because I have this really expensive, ridiculous shovel. The foundation guys came in. Then after that, it was the rough framing. Shortly thereafter, it was all the rough HVAC and electrical and plumbing, and the roof went on shortly after. This was about a 4 to 6 month process for like the first third of the home. And it actually, as many people say, went up pretty quickly. It was new. We were able to live on site. That's a whole nother story in itself. But we were able to pretty much watch daily progress on the home. And that was just a surreal experience. I'll kick it over to you. Do you have any thoughts or excitement?
So Andy, again, keeping our expectations in line, he did a really good job of giving us timelines up front so that we knew it's going to progress really, really quickly all at once at first, and then slow down, it seems like. Yes. And that's exactly what happened. Like when you see a big hole and it has all of a sudden it's framing, and now there's a roof on it, you're like, bam, 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 all these things are happening. And then it did kind of slow down because you're waiting for materials you ordered to come in, or there's a lot of, like I said, detail work in the house. So our Finnish carpenter was in our home for a very long time. And so we would come in and it would be like, the built-in and like maybe some trim work on the ceiling would be done. And then a week later, it's like, oh, we got part of the staircase put up. But everything's hand done.
So pop quiz, no trick question. What's the number one thing we heard during the first 6 to 12 months of the build that was the biggest potential bottleneck?
Us?
Selections.
Selections, yeah.
Which is us.
Which is us.
So we did not do a very good job. We were very wishy-washy. We were very budget conscious. We were trying to figure out where to spend money, where not to spend money. And again, we had so much great feedback from Andy, the superintendent, and Mike's partner. Also from Mike, the trades themselves. A lot of folks said, hey, probably don't want to spend money here. Nobody's going to see it or notice it. Oh, definitely spend money here. This would be a great investment. This is something you'll appreciate for a long time. So selections, I will say if you go through this whole build process, respect the calendar if you want your home to stay on time and stay on budget. To be completely honest, we really enjoyed the selection process, minus 1 or 2 parts of it. I don't think we super enjoyed tile.
Tile was very difficult for me.
And what else was it? Paint was really difficult for us. Countertops we enjoyed, trim we enjoyed.
Plumbing fixtures, pretty much everything else we really liked. And it's not that we didn't like tile and paint. It just felt like such permanent decisions. Not paint so much as the tile. Like once it's in there, like it's in there.
Exterior stone.
Exterior stone.
That took a minute. Exterior color.
Okay, so a lot of selections took a lot of time.
We didn't do that good on the
we also knew that we wanted to have this home be our home for as long as we could possibly have it. So through kids and hopefully one day have grandkids here. So making sure the selections that we were making, a lot of them they're very permanent selections, were very difficult for us. And we also wanted to enjoy the process. Again, we had planned for this home for many years and we weren't in any rush. And nobody really rushed us. They just said, hey, just so you know, if you don't make this selection by this day, then it's going to be delayed because we're waiting for the team. And we were totally okay with that, really appreciative of the communication. Again, going back to the timelines and the team keeping us kind of
on point.
On point, yeah.
Let's talk about challenges. And while we're on the topic of selections, it can kind of relate to delays and or challenges, even financial uncertainties, right? So through this whole process, you're building custom, and as you guys can imagine, the budget is almost what you want it to be outside of what you're approved for with your bank and your financial institution and all that fun stuff. So for example, let's say your budget's 20 grand on something and you find a nicer selection, you do have the ability to upgrade, to make the additional investment part of this process. And as you guys have probably imagined or have heard before, maybe you know somebody went through the custom build process, budget, both on time and money, is very subjective. And so for us personally, how do we do on our budget?
It is what you make it, right? We're self-employed. So
that's a great way to answer the question without answering that.
We were lucky in the fact that like we could go out and, we had a budget in mind, but if we needed to, kind of adjust things, or we could bring on more work and kind of cash flow things. So we weren't as restricted as somebody who's on more of like a fixed budget with their house, which could be good and bad. It opened up a lot more options for us, and then also made it take, I think, 10 times longer.
Well, and that was one thing that we appreciated, the flexibility though. When you look at a traditional, maybe spec home builder or track home builder, and I'm sure you guys have evaluated this or can imagine, but you usually get 3 exterior finishes, 3 options for your master bedroom and your master bathroom, perhaps a couple opportunities to make some upgrades, but that's about it. And usually you can't really move the needle plus or minus 1 degree. For us, if we wanted to double our counter budget at the time, we were able to do that. If we wanted to double our trim budget at the time, we were able to do that. If we wanted to increase our lighting, which that was all my fault, you can increase that by 30 to 50%. And for the most part, other things you can stay on budget, no big deal. But really, that's the ability, and that's the exciting conversation about building custom, is you want to be able to have the integral parts of the home be exactly what you want them to be.
Yeah.
Nobody rushed us through that process. Nobody said you're spending too little or too much on this process. We had a general budget, like Liz said, but there was absolutely areas where we wanted to make additional investment too, knowing that this would ideally be our forever home. And so that's something that was very, very important to us. So again, if you can stay on budget, you can stay on timeline, and you can communicate well with your builder and stay on those selections early as possible, you'll make the process as enjoyable as possible.
Yeah.
So that was something that I think was really important for us. As we kind of fast forward here, maybe like the last third or half of the home, it really started to come together, and it really started to feel like a home, not just a construction site. So can you talk to us about that for just a couple quick minutes? Specifically, the floors were going in, the counters were going in, the staircase was going in. Like it really started to feel and shape up like a real home.
I think once they primed the walls, it was like, oh, holy crap, this is like an actual house you could live in now. Before that, it was like this project we're doing forever, for what it seemed like. And every time something would get installed, it was the most exciting. It was like Christmas almost every couple of weeks. You'd come in the house and all of a sudden you would see these countertops installed, and then they would cover them because you wanted to keep them protected. Or you'd come in the house and the floors were down and then they were covered. And so it was really cool to see it all coming together, but you're kind of like crossing your fingers that you made all the right decisions, because you're not seeing all these bits and pieces all at once come together. You're seeing like one thing cover, and you're like, okay, I liked these individually. Are they gonna look okay when everything is like unwrapped?
I gotta just cut in for a quick second, if you don't mind. I remember the exterior of the home was the hardy board or whatever we ended up working. So
we have shake shingle on the outside, and I think it's like hardy board. I don't know, it's made out of something.
Ask Mike.
Yeah.
Just trust us by asking Mike.
And it was this awful brown color.
It was like a green primed looking color.
Like baby poop.
Yeah, and we were like, well, that looks different. And then I remember a lot of things were coming together at once. Hardwood floors, the counters, some of the paint, I believe, and then the exterior painting. And we had stared at this primed exterior for 9 months, and the painters started painting with their spray guns the white that we ended up going with. And you had a holy cow,
Meltdown.
what is going on? And I remember the front doors came in too,
Yes.
and the light was hitting them a little bit different, and we didn't know what that was the exact color we had selected. And we had this huge mayday, and we had to call Andy, our superintendent.
So remember,
it was all hands on deck.
I've either been pregnant, newly postpartum, or pregnant again, or newly postpartum this whole process. So I did have a couple freakouts, and nobody judged me for it.
So you admit that they were freakouts?
They were
though.
freakouts. I only really had the two. It was the paint on the outside and then the door. And
both in the same 10 days.
both in the same 10 days, both very permanent, which our door, we ended up going custom because of the sizing and stuff. So I knew it wasn't something that we could really like reorder. Like you kind of get what you get when you custom order it, like you picked it. And everybody was so patient with me, which I really appreciated. I felt so bad for Andy half the time because he would have to come in and like talk me off a ledge or like, it's gonna be okay.
Again, Mike had said, trust the process and the vision that you guys had for the home. And he said, he's been through this process hundreds of times before, so he knew how everything was going to come together. But we were only seeing bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And as big vision people that we sometimes believe that we are, it was hard even for us when you're in the thick of it, right? You're so thick into the woods, you can't see the forest. Again, we're about 85% of the way through this process. And like Liz had said, candidly, like we were wondering if we were making the right decisions. We started second guessing a lot of choices, a lot of selections. Mike and Andy just did such a great job. Again, they're not just builders. We feel like they were our therapists half the time. Yes. They did such a great job at reassuring us, trust us, we know the vision that you guys have. We know what you guys are trying to do. You're on point. Everything's going to come together because everything kept getting covered up as fast as it was getting installed to protect it. And all that being said, like I'm just so grateful again to lean on somebody like that was in our corner that didn't allow us to make drastic decisions or have these freakouts, but understand us and just bring our feet back down to earth. I remember one of the days it was all hands on deck, and it was about the front door. And I remember we actually had some of the trades pack up for the day, and they went home because we just needed like 36 hours to breathe.
Yes.
And you know what? That stuff is going to happen. And again, the pressure maybe financially, right, of some of these bigger decisions.
Well, I knew that was the thing is I knew we're not going to be repurchasing this door. Like this is our door.
Yes.
And the only person you can be mad at is yourself for picking it, right? And it ended up being something so silly. It was in a.
It actually ended up working out.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, it ended up working out once you got it into where it was supposed to go, and the way that the light hit it and stuff changed, and everything was fine.
It ended up being no big deal.
It ended up being no big deal.
All right, so let's keep moving fast forward on this timeline, and we'll button this thing up here. Talk to me about the week before we were ending up moving into the home. We're about to take delivery of the home. Everything was coming together. I think we had just came off this like 2 or 3 week window where like nothing was happening. We were about 97% complete. Mm-hmm. We had about a 3 week window where you were getting
antsy. I was getting very antsy.
That's probably the best word to use. And bunch of phone calls came in, material came in, final contractors and schedule and availability came in. And it's just wild to experience this whole process. I truly hope you guys get to experience this whole process if you want to build custom one day. But watching this whole home come together in like the last 10 days, all the final like nooks and crannies and the cleaning of the home even. I mean, it just all came together just out of nowhere. You have this beautiful home. It really was. It was like the overnight success story. We got to come in. So we were in and out of town a couple of times towards the end of this process. And we'd come back and it would seem like not really much was done. And there was all this whole list of things that we saw at least.
That we knew had to be done before we could get certificate of occupancy. And to see them like not, I don't know, kind of like scary. But again, I learned to really trust and lean on the team through this process that if they say, I knew I could take them at face value. If they said that this was going to be done by this date, then like it's out of my hands. If you can tell, I'm a little bit of a control freak. So, I think this process was really good for me in that way, where, we really did put a good team together. Not us, but really Mike, and I just trusted them. And getting to walk into the house the first time after the cleaners were here, they take all of the covers off of everything. and they use cleaning products, obviously, to clean the house, and it smelled like a home. Usually when you walk into the home, it smells like sawdust.
I do remember that.
It was
Construction
so
site
surreal.
to like home.
It was like it went from a construction site to home overnight. It was insane. And then having to say bye to the trades people that were here, knowing it was like one of the last times that we would see Gary or Scott's guys, it was really kind of bittersweet. They're like, okay, we're all done. The house is yours, And I remember walking through with Mike, and he's like, okay, this is, you got to change the air filter, X, Y, and Z times at such and such. And like, it really felt like your dad, like walking you through the house and being like, you're on your own, like in a good way. Like it was very special. It
came to a very abrupt but timely, close and end. And like you said, like these people were family for us for the better part of 3 to 4, maybe 5 years when we really started this whole process. And again, it's more than just a builder. It's more than just a team of trades. These people really were family for us. And we've seen quite a few of them since. We've seen our builder, downtown at, just community events in, your local town. And they're approachable. It's been fun. It's been cordial. It's been great. Like these people aren't just folks that built a home and they're,
see you later
on to the next one.
Thing.
Yeah, they know our kids, and we're going to be able to grow up in the same town and a community together. And it's something that was very, very important for us. I do remember our first couple of days here and our first couple of nights here. It was surreal. For anybody who's hoping to go on this journey of building their own custom home and living the dream, if you will.
It was all worth it. Yeah. Our first night here, is probably getting a little personal, I guess, for this kind of a video, but we had, I don't know how
Bunch of friends over.
Like we had 20 people, I think, here with pizza, and we were just hanging out and put a couch together, and then people stayed the night. Like we had people in
we wanted to show it off.
Every single room on air mattresses, and like that's what we built the house for. Like I don't want an empty house. I wanted people here, and to be able to have them come here and like just be was so cool to me. And our first night here was spent with not just our family but our friends too. It was just so surreal.
Yeah, we wouldn't honestly have it any other way. It was awesome getting to have everybody here and let them experience what we were excited about too, and see it through our eyes and see it through their eyes. It was actually a very special moment, one that I'll never forget. All things being said, we couldn't do it without the Miller team. We couldn't do it without Mike, Andy, Shelby, Bill, Juan, and so many more great people part of the Miller team. All the tradespeople, all the folks that had a helping hand that we don't even know, right? That maybe moved a bolt or a screw or moved product or just helped us through this whole process. I know our family's been there the whole time. Perhaps when we were maybe unavailable or had a selection meeting, or, of course, the grandparents that were watching the kids, many, many a times. Or for these emergency meetings where we had to run to check out the home and make a decision on something. It's a huge undertaking, and I couldn't imagine the last 12, 18 months really going any other way than what it did through this whole process. And so very, very, very grateful for everybody that's had a helping hand. If we were to do it all over again, you said you would do it all over again?
I say I would do it again. I'd probably build a smaller house. Like I would have no problem. We want to have like a southern home, smaller little cottage somewhere. I would do that again. Building a big home, like your forever home, is so much pressure. I don't think I could do it again. Would I? Yeah, I would. It was worth it to me. I would do it again.
And I would absolutely love to watch her do that again. Because I personally, there's just too many decisions for me personally. And as a small business owner, I want to get back to building my businesses. I want to get back to growing our companies and taking care of our folks. This was a huge 12, 18 months commitment and project. Again, I'm excited to, of course, live in the home, watch you get to build your dream home, and give a forever home to not only our kids and our grandkids, like Liz said, but really just to see you experience this whole project and dream come true as well. And it's been just a huge blessing in our life. So super pumped up about all that, and couldn't be more thankful and grateful. Any final thoughts you want to share with everybody while we're here? But it's been a pretty exciting process, and on to the next thing for sure.
Yeah, it really has been great. It's definitely a process, like Brian said, definitely a challenge. I think if your marriage can make it through building a house, having a baby, and growing a business all at the same time, you're gonna do pretty good. So
That's
I have
awesome.
faith in us.
That's awesome. Well, guys, if there's anything more that we can ever answer for a question that you guys might have before you even start this whole process, leave us a comment down below or find us on social media, or maybe ask a TK or Mike if they can lend an ear and soundboard off of. But I think you guys really enjoyed watching this whole process. I know we enjoyed this whole process as well, through the highs, the lows, and everything in between. And it's just been a really good process. So thank you guys so much for being with us on this journey. Thank you again to Mike Miller and the whole Miller Building team. Thank you so much to TK and everybody that's helped along the way. We couldn't have done it without you guys. And I'm so glad to build you your dream home. I hope you enjoyed it.
I love it.
There you go. All right, thanks guys so much, and we'll catch up with you guys here on the next one.